Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 503. Hello, Trail Seeker, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Learn True Health podcast. I just finished my first 5-day fast, and I know my husband's shaking his head. He feels like I'm really late to the party. How many fasts have you done? How long have you been fasting?
Oh, geez, maybe half a dozen, maybe more. I don't know, 8.
Yeah, we kind of lost track. But when did you start? When did you start fasting?
It was right after I stopped eating meat, which is early 2018. My first one was around July, mid 2018, I think.
And I remember when that you did in 2020 because it was February of 2020. I remember that one because it was 17 days. And that stuck in my mind because I remember what we were doing. It was right before all the COVID shenanigans, and that was a 17-day one. But you've done, what is the longest ones you've done?
I can't remember if it was 21 or 28 days now because I don't keep track of it. So
you just kind of go and then days go by.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Well, so my husband has slowly become way more of a fasting expert than me.
I don't know about expert. I just can do it. It's just a muscle, right?
Yeah. Well, so this has been my third official fast in my life. I did one when I was a kid because I had to, because it was doctor's orders. Actually, I wasn't a kid. I was like 13.
Uh-huh.
And that was doctor's orders, though, because of I had a stomach bug. And
Right.
he's like, you have to stop eating. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And then I did it, and I was fine. I was just hungry all the time, but I was 13.
Wouldn't work now because you don't take orders from doctors.
I don't take orders from doctors. So I do take advice from holistic doctors,
True.
but
when I say those kind of doctors.
Yeah, those kind of doctors.
Right.
And they also had me on antibiotics. That was my first time ever being on antibiotics, actually. I was 13, and it's totally my fault because I binged on Halloween candy against my mother's wishes, and that's what you get when you rebel and you eat too much sugar.
Have addictive personality.
Yeah, and you happen to also have addiction brain. Yeah. But I learned my lesson. So, yeah, I just finished my first 5-day fast, and I've gotten a lot of insights, and I wanted to hit record and share it because I thought it'd be really helpful. But I wanted to just jam with my husband Duffy here because he's done so many fasts since 2018, right? You do, How many a year do you think you do?
I think 2. It's been 2.
Yeah.
2.
I mean, there's sometimes when you just don't eat. You just I didn't eat today. And you'll just do
something more important.
Yeah, you just
Something
don't
else.
eat.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it'll be I didn't eat yesterday, so I guess I'm fasting. And then you just start to fast.
Yeah. And I don't feel hungry anymore, so.
Did you feel hunger before fasting?
Yeah.
Do you see?
Even on the first couple, but these last few I've done, it's just oh, okay, I'm not going to do it. And then I don't feel any hunger or any shift until my body starts slowing down from not having enough fuel.
So yeah, I wanted to definitely ask you a few questions since you've done so many of these fasts, and now it's transformed your body. It's transformed your more than just physical, right? It's transformed your relationship to food and relationship to hunger and hunger cues, and food doesn't have that hold on you as much as it did.
Yeah.
So I definitely want to ask you a few questions, but I'd like to share some of my stuff. Okay. So before I get into my story, I want to say to listeners, because I know there's going to be one just like my mother-in-law freaking out right now because on day 2 of my fast, she goes, well, what about the people who die of starvation? And she's looking at me. I'm like, do I look like I'm going to die of starvation in 5 days of not eating? But this is, for someone who's never, missed a meal or never missed a day eating, for so many people who eat 3 meals a day, the thought of not eating is just, it's crazy. I know it's ridiculous. And Duffy did that. He's making gestures with his hands, putting his hands by his head and going boom,
I
brain.
figured I could do that because I have a face for podcasts.
Yes,
so.
you have, and you have a voice for podcasts too. But it's definitely a mental shift. And I resisted fasting so much, but I had Dr. Alan Goldhammer on the show back in episode 230. And I remember that because that is Duffy's One of his
the
dad jokes.
is-
Yeah. What is can you tell the joke?
You just said, you already said it.
Well, I didn't say the joke. I just said
It's the
the
perfect time to go to the dentist.
is
Just
what
2:30.
2:30. Tooth hurty.
Yes.
Yes, your tooth is hurting, so tooth hurty. Yeah. So, episode 230 with Dr. Alan Goldhammer. He runs a fasting clinic, and he's a holistic doctor. It's really interesting, this whole episode, because he talks about one of examples. One of them being a woman who came to his clinic with end-stage cancer and left his clinic a month later with no cancer. So what happened? What happened in that 1 month? And he talks about autophagy and how the body, within the first 30 hours, like after 30 hours of fasting, you're increasing this amazing process where your body's digesting pathological tissue. And so it's like turning the dishwasher on, right? Like we need to clean out our body and clean out the pathological tissue. And we're supposed to do it. We're actually supposed to fast. And he talks about how we as humans fasted regularly, because out of necessity before we figured out how to store food. And so our body went into healing mode as a means for survival and cleansing. And so he reassures us that anywhere from 1 to 5 days is completely healthy under normal circumstances. I mean, if you're on a bunch of medications, you should definitely speak to someone, like speak to a naturopathic physician or licensed doctor that's also hopefully holistic minded that can guide you through it. Because in certain circumstances,
I'm
fasting.
sure a lot of churches could help too, because that's part of the
Oh yeah, we keep hearing our church say stuff like, "Well, we've got to fast and pray, fast and pray." And I had
we got
never
the fasting part figured out.
Yeah, well, we definitely got the fasting part figured out. I always wondered why fasting and praying. And is it just because you're sacrificing yourself? Is it because it really prepares the mind? So I was really
changes your frequency. Right. Didn't remember that's what got me started in fasting was that episode you did with the woman, I don't know her name, but she talked about the different energies of food and how dead animal is like the lowest frequency that you can get
Robin
in your body.
Openshaw.
Oh, okay.
Yep, Robin Openshaw came on the show a few times, and one of them was episode 390. And in episode 390, she talked about how we can do modified fasting for people who are maybe on medications or can't do full water-only fasting. There's a way to do modified fasting where you're eating a little bit, but it's under a certain amount of calories, so that you still trigger autophagy, which is that the healthy programmed cell death. That's apoptosis. Autophagy being the healthy cell cleansing, where the cell digests its own pathological tissues and then digests like scars and cysts. And in some cases, this has been published in clinical observations. In some cases, tumors even are known to be digested by the body during an extended fast. Another really interesting episode I did was with Troy Reicherter, and this was episode 369. That's another one to check out if you're interested in learning more about fasting. He does a 30-day fast once a year. I think you kind of got him beat because you do 2 fasts a year. You're not doing a full 30-day fast, but you do like two or three week
to kind of see
fasts.
I don't think I did one. I think there was a year that I skipped, or because I think I've done 8. Mm-hmm. So however many that is.
Yeah. Well, okay, 8 very
years.
long fasts.
Yeah.
Compared to me, so I can.
Well, now that you're doing it, I'll probably do it more.
We'll see.
Since you've had success. Now,
I've had
for your 5 days.
success, and I'm looking forward to doing more. Let me walk you through my fast and why I did it. Sometime about a week ago, maybe it was in church. I can't actually remember when it happened, but I got a voice saying, "You're starting a fast on Friday." And I'm like, okay. And this was like more like my husband. You should see the look on his face because I haven't told him this
what
yet.
What was the date?
I don't remember.
What was Friday's date?
I
What's
want
the
to say like,
significance of Friday?
do you remember? I mean, do you remember when I told you I was going to start the fast? Because I was like, it might have been last Monday, but anyways, I got a message.
Oh, that.
And I got a. No, I know. That's why you're looking so surprised because I haven't told you this yet. Mm-hmm. But I got a definite divine command. I don't know.
Well, you have free will. So.
I do have free will, but it was definitely like a strong suggestion. But it wasn't an internal
nudge.
voice, a nudge. It was a spiritual nudge. It was a divine nudge. So Holy Spirit said, "Hey, guess what you're doing on Friday? You're doing a fast." And I'm like, "All right, I'm ready." And the thing is, every time I thought about doing fasting, I would always come up with excuses. I'm like, "Oh no, I have an interview next week, or I have an interview in, there's no 5 days in which I didn't have something on my plate." And I'm like, "Well, I have to be eating for this, or I have to. And then that was my first excuse, right? And then my brain would come up with all kinds. See, the body doesn't want to fast, right? Your body, your brain wants you to keep eating, and it doesn't like the idea of fasting. So it's going to tell you all kinds of things. So my brain was like, "Well, you have an interview, you can't do it. You have this business phone call, or you have to, like, you have these clients, you have these client calls. You can't not be eating, right?" And then
what I'm thinking of is how your dad was this master salesperson. So you got him in your head selling you, or you've got his skills in your head. So you could talk yourself out of all this
I'm
stuff.
talking, right.
It's like at a master level.
Right. I have my own sales.
And then with all your training and all that stuff.
I've got like my little sales, he had like the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other.
Yeah.
I've got like a little salesman on one shoulder, like, it's my body speaking to me like, "Okay, these are the reasons why you're not going to do it. I'm going to totally sell you on not doing it." So your brain can be pretty convincing. And then the other reasons were like, "Well, you have to cook every day for your family. So how, you can't do that. You can't fast." And anyway, lots of reasons. So, but something happened, and I think it's been working on me for a while. I don't know if you've ever had that experience where you feel like Holy Spirit's working on you for a while, and it's like suggesting and nudging and bringing things to your attention, and putting videos in front of you, or putting, whatever it is in front of you over and over. And you feel like it might be like whittling away layers of, I don't know.
Pulling out the spiritual earplugs.
Yes. Yeah. And the resistance, those layers of resistance of, "No, I don't want to change. I like being comfortable. I don't want to be uncomfortable." So I'm just going to say, Holy Spirit said, "Go fast." And it was Friday, and it was just like a very specific. So I said, "Okay." And I looked at my schedule. I was like, "Well, I guess we'll see how I feel. I might have to reschedule this. I might have to reschedule that. But you know what? I'm ready. I've been thinking about it for a long time."
I was
and
really excited for you when you told me.
yeah, and I was
I
like,
would have been way more excited if you told me about the spiritual nudge.
right. Well, I was.
It was for now.
Yeah, it was for now, right?
Yeah.
He's smiling. I wish you could see him. He's proud of me. That's cool. So here we have this, "Okay, I'm going for it." And then I did not want to tell Duffy, because I'm like, well, then I'm committed, because once I tell my husband, then he's gonna like be like, "Well, where's this fast?" Like if I back out, right? If I chicken out.
I'm gonna hold you accountable.
I know. So I told him pretty much right away, though, because I think we were standing in the kitchen, and I was like, "Hey, so by the way, Friday I'm starting a fast."
Super excited.
And I knew the second I said it, it was real. So I had to do it as soon as possible before I chickened out. And then Thursday, I had plans to go to the spa with my friend to celebrate something that happened in her life. And I really overdid it. We spent like 3 hours in the hot tub and then the sauna. And I was chugging water the whole time, but I was kind of acting like invincible. And that's just not recommended, because usually when I do infrared, it's like for 30 minutes, not for 3 hours. So I came home very dehydrated with a heat stroke headache, and I pulled out all my holistic stuff and got myself on the mend. But that was an interesting way to start a fast, because the next day I was kind of wrecked from being in a sauna and a hot tub for 3 hours, feeling a little bit like hungover, right? But I was committed. I was like, "Okay, no, I'm starting my fast. I've been drinking water." And so all day Friday, I just felt really awful and hungry and headachy. And at some point, the headache from the heat stroke went away, and then the headache from not eating took over. So
Yeah, Friday was pretty rough for you.
Friday was rough. But all in all, it wasn't unmanageable. I never needed, and I don't go to pain meds. I have to be feeling really bad to go to an over the counter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have to be really, really, really bad. CBD cream on my neck and shoulders helped, and magnesium soak and doing a PES really helped. And
patches.
I used the phototherapy patches that really helped, and I used a bioactive carbon supplement through Dr. Jay Davidson. He is amazing. I mean, go listen to his 2 episodes that I don't have the numbers pulled up right now, but if you type Jay Davidson in learntruehealth.com, you'll listen to him. He created a carbon supplement that soaks up toxins, and it really works. I took 4 of those, like it's just the capsules, and within 20 minutes I feel it like sucking away the toxins, and I start really feeling better. You can check that out by going to learntruehealth.com/cleanse. So all of these things I'm pulling out all the stuff, and of course the phototherapy patches were so helpful. The hunger was manageable. It was just drinking water. But what was really interesting was every 15 seconds, my brain would say, hey, it's time to eat. You're hungry. It's time to eat. It's time to eat. You're hungry. And I have to say to my brain, I don't know if you've ever had self-talk that was like insistent, like your brain and body were going, it's time to eat. And then I would think this in my head, no, I'm fasting. And then my brain would go, oh yeah.
It's all good.
15 seconds later, it's time to eat. You're hungry. And it was like this thought I had this constant like OCD thought, and I had to constantly remind myself. It was really interesting. I had to constantly remind myself, I'm fasting. Oh yeah, over and over again. It was like noise in my head, just constant noise. And
Did it get less?
Oh yeah, so this was it. But the first day I was like, this is like impossible. It was just like the chatter, like I'm hungry, and I had to keep saying I'm fasting, drink water. The next day, Saturday, I was feeling pretty good. I was a little tired in the morning, but I was in a good mood, and I noticed that it was only every 45 seconds I had to tell my brain that we're fasting instead of every 15. And I ended up, I felt just a little bit lightheaded, not too bad, and it would come and go, and it was totally manageable. And then, I took our son to the park, and we went for a long walk with our friend and her kids, and I felt great the whole time. And I thought I brought enough water. Always bring more water than you think you need. Because I brought what I thought was enough water, and then our son spilt half of a jar, and then he drank the other half, and then so I ended up running out of water, and so I'm like, no, I gotta get home.
It's one of the main things I like about fasting is that it's so easier to get water in.
Right, because
that's all you can have.
Yeah,
so
you gotta
just
drink it.
chug it.
Yeah,
it's so easy compared to I struggle with it.
And I wonder how much my fast was helped by drinking the structured water from the analemma.
That's true.
Because that's
it is easier
all the water.
Yeah.
I stirred with the analemma, and I have an episode about that with structured water. You can check it out on the website as well, the learntruehealth.com. You could find it there. And so Saturday I came home, and I'm tiny, maybe 1 out of 10 headache, drank some water. I even went to the grocery store to get some supplies for the kid who never stops eating and is growing like a weed. Came home and just I felt good. And then Sunday I was on top of the world. This was day 3.
I believe that's the high.
I was on top of the world, and I was just really full of energy. I was actually surprised how full of energy I was. And we ended up going to church, and I couldn't believe that, like, I stood, we sang, I felt so good. I felt so full. And I noticed something shifting, because that constant you're hungry eat was gone. Like once, maybe 3 or 4 times that day, it was like, I'm hungry. And I was like, yeah, but we're fasting. Okay. And I drink some water and it would go away. The hunger doesn't stay. It would come, it would be painful, not painful, but it would be like uncomfortable, which is what we don't like. We don't like being uncomfortable. Our body doesn't like being uncomfortable, but that's something what we need. We need to be uncomfortable at times to push and grow and learn. So Sunday, this is day 3, I just felt amazing. And I noticed these moments where my mind was empty in a good way, that I was just being in the now. And I kind of lost the capacity somewhere around day 2 to fully to multitask. Like, I don't know. women sometimes can like listen to the radio, listen to kids talking, text, like do 3, 4 things
Yeah,
at
I
a
see you
time.
do that. I don't believe it still.
I
don't,
can
I
I
don't
can
know. I
do it.
can't.
I can do
I'm
I
like one
usually.
channel.
Yeah, I know. Usually I can multitask
Yeah.
and
I know. I still don't believe it when you do it.
I know I can do it. But on the fast, there was only one channel. And so like when I was driving, our son started talking to me. I'm like, nope, no, 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 no.
Okay.
I'm driving.
Oh,
I
yeah.
can only focus on driving. I can't also focus on you talking. And I just noticed that this single channel took over. And that's where I think the praying, the fasting and meditating, or fasting and praying comes in, because there's no chatter, there's no like chaos going on in my brain. It was peaceful in my brain, other than the occasional like my body nagging for
Well, your
food. But
brain has changed its state. It's like a
yeah,
break state.
it is a break state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But on a slower time frame.
So then Sunday afternoon, evening, I started like getting this huge rush. Now I also was wearing the phototherapy patches, which I definitely think this is one of the reasons why I had this, but I had a huge rush of energy, and I spent hours picking away at the house, cleaning, running around. And Duffy just wanted me to sit down and, chill with him and watch some TV, which he normally does not. He very seldom.
You needed to slow down.
Yeah,
So.
he was trying to get me to slow down. So he put on something on TV for me, and I was like, "No, we're cleaning. I want to run around." And I got really productive. And I also noticed that I was very hot, like I was making a lot of heat in my body. So I was like burning off energy, and I just felt like happiness, peace, and full. I felt fulfillment. Not full of food, but I felt full of spirit. So then I don't know what, I hit a wall. So Sunday was the best. That was day 3. And originally I was only going to do a 3-day fast, because I wasn't told how long the fast was supposed to be. I was just told you're starting a fast on Friday. And originally I was going to do 3 days. And then Duffy's like, what do you,
You don't get the benefits until day 5.
he's
right?
like, come on. Well, you do get some benefits day 3.
But that's
the big,
the big stuff.
the big stuff happens day 5. He's like,
Yeah.
the human growth hormone spike, the stem cells spike. There's some great benefits for 5-day. And to be honest, there was, I think, a part of me that was kind of terrified, because we have a friend who's a naturopathic doctor, and she's afraid of fasting because her boyfriend, before she, a long time ago, she had a boyfriend who fasted, and then she had to rush him to the hospital. And this is back before she was a doctor and she didn't know what was going on. And so she's afraid of fasting. So she's like, no, never. She's like, don't ever fast. It's so
Right,
bad for you.
right.
She was so afraid of it. And I've talked to so many doctors, and they're like,
Since then.
yeah, since then, who are saying, yeah, if you do it properly, like, sure, some people can experience some issues, but for the most part, it's very safe. And there's ways to get around issues, and start slow, and don't do more. Like Dr. Goldhammer says, don't do more than a 5-day fast. If you're, like he says, 1 to 5-day fast is totally safe to do at home.
Yeah.
As long as you're in, fairly good health, you're not like on a bunch of meds. And then my husband's like, no, I'm just gonna listen to my body, and I'm just gonna keep fasting until.
Yeah, I generally don't have any trouble. Something comes up usually, and it's like, I should probably get back to food, huh?
Yeah, and then your
I
body
think
goes.
every time it ended because of some external circumstance.
Yeah, that you wanted to.
But I wanted to keep going.
You-
but it
you-
was like
you wanna
in
keep
my
going?
best interest to eat.
Yeah, but it's usually like 2-3 weeks, and then you
Yeah.
refeed. So something happened yesterday, and I hit a bit of a wall. I just noticed that I had much less wall in that I was hoping the energy I had on Sunday would continue, and that was not the case. My body wanted to rest, and maybe that's because I was kind of coming into that. I was going, I'm coming out of the 3rd day, I'm coming into the 5th day, the 4th day, there's some big transition for me, there was, and that my body wanted to rest. And so we went to the park, I brought my lawn chair, and I sat in the sun, put my feet up, and closed my eyes. My friend, we were talking, and half the time I couldn't even keep my eyes open. I was yawning, I'm chugging water, yawning, watching the kids play, and just relaxing. And what I noticed is that level of peace deepened, and I had a really just deep and full sense of peace. That's when I was like, oh yeah, I get the whole meditation or praying while fasting thing, because I'm already there. I'm already halfway into a meditation, just sitting in my lawn chair, just relaxing and relaxing into my body. There's definitely an experience of emotions, an experience of a spiritual aspect of yourself and of life. And I started to reflect on the things I've been working on myself, the things I'm improving, I'm healing, I'm working on, I'm grappling with the idea of, addiction brain, and how I would look at food, like preparing food for our son or you. I'd look at food while I was on the fast, and I'd look at it and I go, there's this part of me that it's like there's never enough. There's a pit inside, and nothing will satisfy that pit. And I think that's the addiction brain, right? Like nothing will satisfy that. And it was an interesting observation. And I've kind of like looked at this from different angles throughout the years, but to look at it from a fast, it's like, it's okay. It's okay to not try to fill that unfillable void.
It's a totally new perspective for your brain.
Yeah. Yeah. And just like, and also it's kind of like looking at like a part of me that's like, I'm ashamed of, that's, like, because in society, it's definitely not respected to have addiction rate or to talk about it. Right. Mm-mm. And so, I feel vulnerable talking about it. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's like, I'm also working on it. And I'm looking at it like there's, when did this start? And I was asking myself, like, when did this start? Because as a kid, I remember I did not care about food as a kid. Like, I did not think about food as a kid.
Well, when you usually talk about it, it's when I turned 13, I started to rebel. It was high school when you could buy French fries in the lunchroom.
That's exactly. And that's when I was at the park and with my eyes closed, like just with the sun and the breeze and just being with myself and not having the fast gave me the ability to not have any mental capacity for like handling tasks, right? Like I was not a taskmaster. So I just sat there and I was just with myself. And I'm like, when did this, like, because I remember as a child, I just ate what was put in front of me, whether I liked it or not. I wasn't happy when they like fed me fish. Like I didn't like that. I don't like picking the bones out, but I ate it because I didn't think that there was a choice. And they would put food in front of me. I'd eat it. Sometimes I'd like it. Sometimes I didn't. And sometimes, once in a while we go to a restaurant, I like that. But it wasn't like during my life, I wasn't ever thinking about food or like overeating or emotional eating or caring about it. And then it right around 13. And that's right when I had the antibiotics because I rebelled and ate the candy. And that's my first experience with the antibiotics. Yeah. And so just looking at this shift, and then I saw in my teenage years, like how my mom would put me on diet after diet, even though I wasn't overweight.
So that may have messed up your metabolism that you're learning now.
Yeah. But, yeah. And then going towards food as that, because I had this void in me, the hurt and the rejection and all that, the stuff from my parents and from, being an angsty teenager. And food is a drug and can be used like a drug. But now coming at it from the fast, it's like I can see more clearly that part of me when it's going, I want 100 bowls of that food or whatever it is, right? Like there's that part that's just, there's no satisfying it.
Right.
And, can I quiet it? I don't always have it, right? But it definitely became loud in the fast because I wasn't eating. And that's what it wants. It wants to be fed.
Mm-hmm. But I think what you'll notice when you start eating as you're refeeding, that your relationship with food will have been completely reset. And the cravings, or like this is what I noticed, the food cravings or the need to eat out of boredom or anything like that, I felt like I had a completely new perspective on it, and I could just not be interested in it like I was for the same reasons that I was in the past.
Right. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to hear if you notice that too.
When my second official fast, which was
what was your two experiences?
Oh, I've had, so this is my third fast, right? My
Right,
first
yeah,
was
you
when I
said
was
that.
like
Oh,
13.
right, okay.
My second was 2000, right? It was right when we got the enlightened sauna and our son broke his arm.
Okay.
Right? Like
Yeah.
that was kind of happened right around the same time. That was
Yeah.
2018, 17. So
17.
2017. Okay, so in 2017, I did a 3-day fast, and then I broke the fast because our son broke his arm and we had to go to the hospital, and so I wanted to eat something so that I could handle like the mental hula hoops I needed to go through because we were going to children's hospital. So overall, I had a really good experience. I noticed fears coming up around food, like it would interesting thoughts, and they weren't me. Like sometimes it's like your thoughts aren't you, right? And so I'd become the observer of these thoughts, and I'd say that's interesting. Like this is an interesting thought because this thought was recurring. So I'm like, okay, so there's something to work here, uncover, and just know like it would help that I'd say, hey, this is a thought that I keep having, but it's not me. I don't own this thought, but it is a pattern. So there's something going on, and this thought kept coming up like almost a fear saying something like, what if this doesn't fix me? What if this fast doesn't, like, what if I still, this is the fear, this is, I know it's illogical, right? Fears aren't logical,
right.
but I kept going, this is interesting. So I'd go to the kitchen, I'd cook you guys some food, I wouldn't eat, and then the chatter would come back, oh, I want to eat that. And I'm like, well, how much do you want to eat it? Like, how much do you want? And it's like, I want all of it. You know, that void is like, I want unlimited amounts, right? And that, so the void, the addiction, the craving, whatever it is like just there's none. And I kept looking at the food going, there's no amount that would satisfy that craving. So I don't need to try to satisfy it because there's no amount that would. The fear was something like, what if when I refeed and get back to eating, it's all going to be the same? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what if this doesn't change me or this work? It was a weird, interesting thought. And I was like, okay, so I'm just observing this. I'm observing this thought because it's an irrational fear, right? But it was interesting because I guess it was so not these voices, they weren't like voices like a possession or a demon or something. It was just more like the voices
This draw or pull.
This draw, this pull, this addiction.
Yeah.
I keep calling it addiction because it's the best way I can describe. But the relation, I guess maybe I could call it a relationship I have with food and my self-talk around food. And so I just got to examine it. So anyways, I had dinner tonight. This is my refed, and it was a very small meal because I haven't, it was like I did like 3 steamed carrots and a little bit of mashed potatoes. I ate slowly, I chewed, and I noticed that I got full really fast, which was, I mean, that's predictable, right? But I put the food down. There's still food in the bowl. I'm like, I'm fine. I'm done, and that's something I expected. I expected to do that. But there was peace. Mm-hmm. There was peace while eating, and there was peace afterwards.
Did you notice that when you set it down, when you hadn't finished it, but you felt complete with it?
Yeah.
Instead of needing to feel complete with the empty dish. At least that was for my thing, because
right.
when I grew up, you ate everything on your plate.
Yes.
And it had to be done that way. So I think I had been programmed to finish my plate no matter what. And then the fasting showed me feeling of needs in the moment instead of the need my brain is telling me.
Eat till full.
Or my programming is telling me to eat.
Not till
clear the plate.
Not till like too full, right? Like we would just we eat too much. We eat way too much. Right. And the studies with longevity are that those who eat, nutrient dense food, low calorie, live the longest, right? And have the least amount of disease. And we can survive on way fewer calories. And I know calories is not a good measurement for food because really it's about nutrient density. We don't need as much. And there's something beautiful about eating simple. And a lot of people rebel when I talk about cutting out oil, cutting out sugar, cutting out flour, cutting out salt. Well, what am I going to eat? Oh, cutting out meat or eggs and dairy.
Jeez, you're cutting out all these things you have to buy or worry about or that'll go bad or, all these things. You just have to worry about so much less.
To just try cutting out these foods. they're left with, well, food's not going to taste good. It's not going to, and
Tastes
it's,
better.
well, it does, but first you have to adapt
Yeah.
your palate to that. And a lot of times people's addiction brain comes up, or their relationship with food, and their rebellion, right, with food, and how they seek pleasure and comfort from food. Comes up, and it's a big conflict, right? Because they want to stay comfortable instead of make themselves uncomfortable to get healthy. So it's a challenge, but it's interesting. Ask anyone who wants to be healthy, ask them, like, are you willing to give up these foods, in exchange for these foods, like vegetables, fruit, and just eat vegetables, fruit, and starchy vegetables, and some non-gluten grains, like, can you eat brown rice and kale and broccoli?
And a little cognitive dissonance, right?
At first they're thinking it's going to be gross, like I'm not going to get pleasure. What about the holidays? And that's just like me in the self-talk at the beginning of when every time I thought about doing a fast, that self-talk comes up. It's like, well, what about this? What about that? I couldn't eat that way. I couldn't do it. It's like, why not? Why not? Because your relationship with food. And so I was going into this fast going, great, I'm going to have an experience. I wanted to, my intention really was to go into experience. I wanted to see, like, everyone talks about how cool fasting and praying is. So I wanted, or fasting and meditating. So I wanted to know, like, well, what's up? Does fasting really help prayer? Like, or does it, like, do you feel more connected to source? And certainly I did. Certainly when I prayed, because it was the only thing happening in my mind. It was the only thing happening in my body. I was so in the moment. That's another thing I haven't talked about. I was so in the moment. The past it's like the past melted away, the future melted away. I did not know what was happening in 5 minutes. I did not know what was happening tomorrow. And there was no anxiety about it, no worry about it. There was no thinking about the future. I was so in the now. My body was so present. I was just melted, and it was like I melted away, and I just became the observer, being in the moment. Even when we were cleaning or talking or walking or just sitting, whatever I was doing, I just felt like I melted away, and I was just being in the moment. And I had long stretches where there was no thoughts in my mind, and it was so peaceful. I was just in the moment, and I wasn't even trying to. That was just an effect of the fast. So I was like, there's something really cool about this. But everything came to the forefront and was really loud, so I could examine it easily. These
That's
thoughts.
a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It allow me to mull over, like, oh, what's going on here, right? Because we sometimes are our worst enemies, in that our habits have created our own health problems, right? The things we choose to eat, the habits we choose to do, and the things we choose not to do.
And supporting those toxic systems that want to feed you toxic food.
Right. Yeah. And all of that, it can be let go, and there's going to be resistance in your head. There's going to be, I don't know who it is. I don't know if it's the ego, or if it's the unconscious, or if it's some kind of programming, or if it's the body, or if it's the dopamine you're seeking. I haven't, whoever it is, there's something in us that fights change, that fights being uncomfortable, that fights taking away little pleasures that are hurting us, right? And that fast brought forth a lot for me to process. So it was worth it. I really loved it, and I loved that I had my husband here to cheer me on, and also I could complain to him and say, I'm hungry, and he's like, keep going, you can do it. And I'm like, I know, but I'm hungry. And then I would drink some water, and we'd do something else. And then, today on my 5th day, he gave me a foot rub, and that was really sweet of him. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So your experience with fasting, did you have any aha moments that you can remember?
I think the reset with the relationship with food, and it's more of a body experience instead of a mind, brain experience.
Yeah, cool. Anything you learned from refeeding after your fasts?
Oh, I suck at that. I go straight for food. I'll take the pain. It's probably not.
It's not good for you.
It's just easier for me to deal it that way. I know you freak out about it.
Yeah, I definitely support him in refeeding by making him soups and smoothies and what he's supposed to eat, which is like soft foods for a few days, and then he's like,
No, it's like when I'm done,
whatever,
I'm
I want a
done.
burrito.
I'm done. Yeah.
You can't just go for a burrito. You need to you need to like not eat salt or not eat like you have to definitely make sure you avoid any form of added salt.
But that's just my personality.
Yeah,
so,
I know.
Yeah.
I know. For me and for the listeners, do you have any advice for people who've never fasted?
Well, do it. I think you just start, and for any length of time, just pick a length of time and go for it.
Yeah.
And know that
How do you, for those who've never fasted, how do you get over the initial hunger? How do you get over the initial, like, feeling tired? Or how did you do it? Or how do you
brute force.
just
just
stick-to-itiveness?
This is what's happening, and any pushback is ignored.
I kind of felt like I had to dig deep into that. Like, I know deep down I'm really powerful and I can do whatever I really, really put my mind to.
I'd use a whole lot of won't power.
Won't power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do that. I just won't do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Just gonna drink water and not eat.
Right.
Yeah.
Just set the intention and go.
And warn your family that you might be grumpy, because there was a few times I was hangry and
You weren't that bad.
I know,
No,
but I
you
wasn't
weren't
a
that
sweet.
bad.
I wasn't a sweet.
I can't see that any other way, so I don't know.
Look at this, kissing up to me. Love it. Did you observe anything in me the during my fast that I haven't talked about? Were you surprised I did 5 days? He wanted me
No,
to
I knew
go-
you could do it.
He
I
wanted me to
was
go longer.
bummed when you ended it because I was like, "Oh, go for 7."
No.
You haven't felt the, because it gets better.
Oh, tell us about how it gets better
don't-
after day 5.
I just remember it gets better.
You-
No, I can't. I need to journal
You
during what.
You need
'Cause I
to
don't.
journal. You need to journal.
You need to edit.
I'm not taking that out. It is down. He has said it. It's on. It's
been said
recorded.
before.
It's been said. That'd be so cool. You should totally journal during your fast. I'm glad I have such a good
Maybe
memory.
Maybe I will.
And that's why I'm doing this. This is my journal, by the way. You could do an audio journal if you wanted to.
It's your leverage.
This my leverage.
Hit play.
Yeah.
Episode 510. Hit play.
I think this is going to be 503. I'm not
Oh,
sure.
okay.
I got to look.
Okay.
But yes, I'll get to play it for you and be like, see, listen to yourself. You say you need to journal. And he's sticking his fingers in your ears. He goes, what have you said in the past? This marriage didn't come with earplugs?
No, it did not.
No. All right. Well, I do remember on your fasts that somewhere in week 2, you're just kind of so happy that you're happy. You're just going with it. And you've never had moments where you can't drive. Like you don't,
No.
you act like yourself, which is great. 'Cause I don't know how you I'm down to one channel. Like I can only do one task at a time when I'm fasting.
No.
And you're great. You do the dad stuff. You drive our kid around. You do stuff in the business. But week 2, you just, you did I do notice that you start kind of get cold.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, one thing that I did notice is, I would say 2 of the fasts that I've done that are longer than a week, I was not strict with what went in my mouth. Like the chewable, the gummy supplements we have. Like, take a couple more, or I would. What was it?
maybe
Like,
some cashews.
like a hand, like 5 cashews. That won't hurt anything, and that's a slippery slope.
That's what
It's
Duffy-
a lot harder to cheat. It's very hard to recover. Whereas if it's a strict fast,
Yeah.
it's actually easier. You're not taunting yourself.
Right.
Or I was, taunting myself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that would probably be the biggest advice.
I remember that.
It's like,
And then you were
don't
like-
even cheat a little bit, even though it's still considered fasting if it's less than 300 calories a day.
I think it
whatever
depends.
you said, or
Yeah, it was something like
whoever
500
you
calories a
read.
day, or it depends on who you read.
Yeah.
Depends on what, I mean, it depends on it's like if you're going to eat complex or starchy if you have starchy carbohydrates, it'll take you out of ketosis. But there's certain foods you could eat, and it's more, I mean, individuals. I know someone who, like, they can eat asparagus or zucchini and it takes them out of ketosis, whereas another person could eat a potato and they're
Yeah,
still
I
in
just
ketosis.
found it was best not to. It's a slippery slope.
Yeah. But sometimes, occasionally, you would have like a electrolyte drink.
Yeah,
And
or broth, vegetable broth.
or a clear vegetable broth with no sodium,
Yeah,
and just for electrolytes, and you felt fine.
yeah,
But anything beyond that, it would put a monkey wrench in the
yeah.
whole thing. And then it would make the fasting really hard, and then you kind of got grumpy because then you're like,
Yeah, and then I'd give up, and then
right.
yeah.
But your version of giving
So
up is like,
I remember too. I know I said that they ended up external. Those two of them that, now that I'm thinking about it, that I sabotaged. I think.
right.
Yeah.
But you've done
Not,
pretty
but
long
not
ones.
really, because
Yeah.
it wasn't like 6 cashews. It was only 5.
Yeah, you justified. That's the thing. Those are the voices in the head. I know we're
Exactly,
justifying
exactly.
it. It's, well, this is just this. It could totally be
Right.
fine. And then those little voices, you got to observe them and then talk to them. It's almost like, and Glenn Livingston, I had him on the show, I don't know, like 5 times. He's amazing. You should definitely check out his episodes. Glenn talks about how we have this inner brat in our, I think he calls it his inner pig, and I call it my inner brat, because I totally have a brat that's like, I want what I want when I want it. And Duffy definitely has his own inner brat that, we all do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a brat?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And sometimes we get stubborn and we just want what we want
Do I
it.
need an attorney present?
Do you need an attorney? I plead the fifth.
Yeah.
There were a few fasts I noticed where you got cold. Your hands got cold. Do you always get cold in fasting, or just
I
sometimes?
think so.
Yeah, that's never
just part of it.
concerned you, is just part of it.
Yeah.
I noticed I was cold. I did. Actually, I was cold today. I wanted slippers on my feet, and I did notice that I was getting cold. So that's part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing to worry about here. Cool. And sleep, was sleep deeper for you on fasting? Because I noticed some nights I was deep sleep, some nights it was almost like I felt like I was still awake. I think I was detoxing. I noticed I felt like I was awake half the night.
That's not something I'm not as in tune to my sleep as you are.
Yeah,
I just do it. And
You
then
do.
I don't, it is. It's good, bad. I
Right.
slept.
Yeah. So when's your next fast?
I don't know. Do you want to do one together on your next, or
Yeah, but this isn't going to be like, I'm going to,
you're going to do 5 days?
I'm
not
probably going to do
you
5
want
days
double
again.
digits, more fun.
I don't know. I'll work up to it.
Okay.
But
Well, I'll do it with you.
I'm
again
very
on the next
happy.
One.
Yeah, sure. I'm very happy about this fast, and I'm glad we could come on and share about it. And it's an interesting experience. I like that I set an intention. I like that the universe, God, Holy Spirit, whatever we call it, was like, all right, you're ready. Let's go. Let's go. So it does kind of help to have a higher power telling you, calling your name. But then just the observation of the mental, what's going on mentally, what's going on emotionally. And the best thing was when I could become the observer instead of buying into the drama of the brat, freaking out in my brain about how hungry I was, or how I just wanted to eat, or, I'm so grumpy because I just want to eat. When I could just watch that and go, wow, this is an interesting
I think it's just the
behavior.
biggest thing is the change in perspective,
Yeah.
because it is completely different.
Well, like today when I had dinner to break the fast, it was a very small amount of food. I felt satisfied. I put the bowl down. There's still food in it. And I'm like, I took a breath and I felt my stomach. I felt like my whole abdomen, right? Like I just checked in with it, and I went, this feels right. This feels good. This feels right. This is good. Okay, cool. And I also noticed, because we've been having this talk with our son who's fighting us on eating healthy. We don't serve him junk food, but I'm trying to get more vegetables into him, and he's like, I don't like vegetables. He's decided he doesn't.
Can you blame him?
I love vegetables. They're so healthy.
don't.
I know, dude. You can't be a vegan that doesn't like vegetables, or
But I do it.
I know. I feed him vegetables.
Yeah.
So I'm having these conversations with our son who's like, he didn't want to eat dinner tonight. And because he's like, I don't like the taste of this. And he starts crying. He's 8 years old. He's like, please don't make me eat this. I'm like, I'm not going to make you eat it. But, we made this and we don't want it to go to waste. And it's healthy for you. And I'm like, okay, well, what else, so I negotiate with him. What else will you eat? What other, pick another vegetable. And I, keep talking to him about how it doesn't need to taste good to make it healthy for you. That's just enjoyment. Like, that's just a bonus, but it's okay to eat something that isn't the most tastiest thing in the world. As long as it's healthy for you, it's building your body. So I don't love cooked carrots. Like, I really don't. It's not on my top 50. And yet that's what I cooked. That's what we had in the fridge. And I was like, fine, I'm making it. And I ate it and I enjoyed it. It's not my favorite. I don't love it, but I'm like, I'm just going to be here in the moment, chewing this food, feeling it and asking it to nourish my body. And I'm going to be okay with and be at peace with eating food and I already eat super clean and healthy. Like, I'm very, very good about the foods, but I did in the past find that I was choosing meals based on the pleasure factor instead of the health and nutrition factor. Even though I was still eating whole food, plant-based, super clean, organic, I still noticed that craving would come up, that like, oh, don't eat that, eat this because of the pleasure. I'm like, that's not what I want to be able to make food choices based on how good it is for me and be okay with the different levels of pleasure I may or may not get from food. So that was another thing that I got out of this fast. Yeah. Awesome. Well,
Thanks for having me on.
yeah, thanks for coming on. Maybe we'll have you on again.
Yeah, we'll see when my arm heals. Maybe I'll come on again.
Well, welcome to the 500s.
Yeah, thank you. It
took
took me that long to bring up the courage to do it.
Well, I think you said one sentence in an episode, like maybe 20 episodes ago. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed today's interview with myself. It's more like a conversation. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with my husband, Duffy, and me, and us talking about our experiences with fasting. When I'd recorded this conversation that you just listened to with my husband, Duffy, I had just finished my 5-day fast, and it had been a few hours after my first meal breaking the fast. Now sitting here about to hit publish, I wanted to update you. So it's been 2 days now into refeeding. A really interesting development. I I noticed with Duffy Van about how I think the hardest part about fasting, because I thought the hardest part would be hunger. The hardest part's refeeding. I just want to go back. I just want to just jump back into regular food. And you really shouldn't. The longer the fast, the more gentle you should refeed. And as Troy Reicherter said in our interview, episode 369, where he tells his story. Now, he fasts 1 to 3 times a year, doing these really long 30-day fasts. And so you could definitely go back and listen to episode 369. He's been on the show a few times. Interestingly, he has spent over $40,000 of his own money and invested in blood testing because he wants to prove that we can use fasting to get rid of forever chemicals out of our body and to take out these chemicals that are known carcinogens, known cancer causing. So you can go back and listen to that episode 369. One thing he tells this story about how he got a little cocky. He had to fly to Asia. I believe it was a funeral he was going to. He was kind of distracted. He was just wrapping up a 30-day fast. And on the flight, he ate like a bag of peanuts or whatever they gave, whatever, like pretzels or whatever they gave out. And I've seen Duffy do this where he's like, oh, I'm at the end of a fast. It's fine. I'll just eat regular food. And the problem with that is, and Trey explains this in the interview, our kidneys while we're fasting are so efficient that when we stop eating food, they concentrate our electrolytes. So they'll concentrate the salt and the potassium, and they'll concentrate the wonderful electrolytes. And those who have kidney problems, they need to, you should really talk to if you're on medication or have any organ issues, definitely want to talk to a doctor. You could talk to Dr. Ellen Goldhammer. That's episode 230. And you can contact the True North Medical Center. That's his center. And it's a nonprofit where it's a live-in center where you go and stay there. You can stay there for a week, for a month. He's had one man did a 100-day fast with him successfully, very healthfully, because you're constantly monitored by doctors. And it's on my bucket list. I really want to go there. It's just a matter of money and maybe when our son is older, so I feel comfortable leaving my family to go do that, or maybe taking my whole family if we could afford the expense of it. Last I looked, it was something like $180 a day, which is room and board. And when you're not fasting, they feed you amazingly healthy, delicious food, and they have classes and they teach you, and you're surrounded by holistic doctors who are all there to support you in your success. So it just sounds like a wonderful, for me, it's like, oh, that sounds like a vacation. Like I want to go to a fasting clinic where it's like a little fasting resort in California. But the True North Medical Center has Dr. Ellen Goldhammer and has other doctors. You can call and do a consultation. Just go to their website, just Google the True North Medical Center, and you can talk to them. So if you're concerned, like, hey, I have these issues and I'm wondering if fasting is good for me or right for me, they're doctors who are really well educated on fasting. A lot of doctors aren't educated on fasting, so they would just kind of tell you what they think, but they wouldn't have the background, the science background to, or the clinical experience to inform you correctly. So having said that, Troy ate some peanuts. Now, remember, the longer you fast, the more your kidneys are being very smart in that they're reclaiming the sodium and concentrating it. So instead of urinating it out, it's keeping it, putting it back in the blood. And so when you start refeeding, you want to eat soft foods like vegetables, steamed vegetables, or broth, soups, juices, smoothies. But you want to make sure that it's soft, there's no added salt, no sodium added. I mean, if it's naturally occurring, like here's a carrot, there's 5 micrograms of sodium in it. Okay, it came from the ground. And you do this for several days and slowly until you can eat solid foods again. Well, he just had fasted so many times. He was like, oh, this is what could this do? It's just a bag of peanuts. And, this very long flight, coupled with maybe the stress and maybe he's not drinking enough water, and flights, even just flying, tends to kind of bloat people. Well, he almost died. He ended up, his whole body became a balloon. His fingers became like sausages. He couldn't close his fingers. His feet wouldn't fit in his shoes. Like he ballooned out. And I think he had told me he ended up going to a hospital, or almost did. And then he realized, oh yeah, I broke my fast with possibly the saltiest snack in the world, peanuts from an airplane. That's a really good indicator, really good warning. So it's so important that whether you're doing a 1 day, 3 day, 5 day, 7 day, whatever fasting, water only fasting you're doing, you want to make sure the whole time that you're healthy with your electrolytes. If you start to get cramping or have any of those symptoms where you may feel like your electrolytes are a little off, I hear that diluted coconut water is a great natural electrolyte without fully breaking the fast. And so is sodium-free broth, not low sodium, not regular broth, but clear, no sodium vegetable broth. And I have seen, there's only like one brand I can find, and it's at Sprouts. And so I buy up a few and keep them around for when Duffy's on his very long fast. When he does several weeks, he likes to drink one once in a while, and just a little bit, just to keep him balanced. So I refed, and the last 2 days, and 5-day fast refeeding takes like 2 days. It's not that big of a deal. I'm back to eating solid foods again. I noticed that I eat slower, like I chew more. I'm asking myself to chew more, but I'm also chewing more because I'm really enjoying the flavors. I noticed that during the fast, I didn't mention this in our conversation when I talked to Duffy. I noticed that my through the fast, my sense of smell was heightened. My sense of, or maybe I did talk about it. I can't remember now because Duffy and I did mention, he says, yeah, it's kind of like people who say they quit smoking and all of a sudden they can smell food again. They can taste food again. It's not like they couldn't before, but now it's just everything's elevated. And that's what I feel like my senses elevated. But I was expecting that to not be as intense and in a good way. And what's great is now 2 days after the fast, my sense of taste is elevated and I'm chewing and I'm going, wow, what's that flavor? Like I made a salad and I'm like, oh, what's that flavor? What was that? That was a tomato. What was that? That was some cilantro. Oh my gosh. I noticed that I'm happier. I'm just happier in my body. Not that I was sad before. I'm like generally a very cheerful person, but I've have this peace and the intensity of and I'm not going to say it's gone completely, but the intensity of the self-talk around food is calmer, more peaceful. Once in a while, my self-talk's like a little judgy, like, how many of those are you going to eat? And I'm like, wow, judgy voice in my head. I'm going to eat one because I'm going to just feel my body and see how I feel. And I'm noticing that, I mean, even if it's healthy food, it's like I could eat a salad and this little voice in my head's going, wow, you're eating so much. I'm like, where'd you come from? But I can hear those voices now instead of it being like this like this just frustration. The fast brought them forward. So now I'm like working on the self-talk. And I've had interviews, by the way, on self-talk. Type in self-talk at learntoyourhealth.com. I've had some mental health counselors come on and talk about working with self-talk and why as a species do we develop negative self-talk and how to calm it, how to heal that or get rid of it. I've had different guests come on and I've been leaning on those tools and listening to the self-talk and going, wow, this is a really interesting. It's much calmer. There's much more peace in my head and in my heart, but in my body, there's a feeling, and it's so cool because I didn't know this would continue, but since the fast, I feel elated. It's very similar to euphoria, but it's not ungrounded. I feel grounded. I feel in the now. I feel at peace. My cells are buzzing with happiness and I'm eating good food. I'm like everything I've been eating has been pretty much vegetables and really healthy stuff, a little bit of fruit here and I've got a lot of vegetables. So I just made the most delicious white beans with garlic. They're so good. And I was just having a little bit going, I can't believe how good this tastes. I can feel my body is just happy. And so I wanted to share that with you. So if you're someone who has been just frustrated, struggling with their emotional health or their feelings around their body, please try it. Just try it for whatever you can. If it's right for you, do it. It's beautiful. It's similar to when I switched to whole food plant-based and I started going, wow, I'm feeling happier. I'm feeling happier. Like every day was like layers and layers of inflammation went away and also the gut microbiome and everything. My body just felt more and more happy with my choices. Like I love how Duffy mentioned cognitive dissonance, right? And when you have cognitive dissonance, there's that really uncomfortable right before the shift where you make your behaviors be in alignment with your values. It's uncomfortable to be there because part of you wants to keep doing the old behavior, but it's not right for you, right? So like if, for example, eating meat was something or eating cheese or eating pizza or whatever, it's like, or I like it, but I like it. I don't want to give it up, but I know it's bad for me. And then if you do give it up and instead you replace it with amazing whole foods, delicious whole foods, and then weeks into that, you're going, wow, I didn't know this could taste so good. I didn't know I could feel this way. I didn't know I could feel this feeling I have in my body 24/7 is way more important and worth way more than a slice of pizza. Like a slice of pizza and beer gives you what? 15 minutes of pleasure. And then the rest of the day is this constant background noise of misery because the body is suffering and that spills over into emotions. So your physical health, your emotional health, your mental health, your spiritual health, all are connected. And when you do something for one, it helps the other. There's one more thing I wanted to share, and that is that when I was talking about my 3-day fast that I did back right around when our son broke his arm, it was almost at the 3-day mark, and I didn't know he had broken his arm. I know he had had a fall, and then we put him on down for his nap because he was a toddler, and everything seemed fine. And while he was down for his nap, I had this intense voice in my head, kind of similar to this voice that told me to do this fast. And this voice said, and it wasn't me. It wasn't a voice in my head because I was actually doing really well. I was totally congruent. It was day right around day 3 is the time when everything starts getting really good in fasting, because your body switches over from burning glycogen, which is our sugar stores, to burning fat for fuel, which is ketosis. This isn't the ketogenic diet. This is the state of ketosis, which is burning fat for fuel, making ketones for your brain and for your body for fuel instead of relying on what you're eating, which is glucose. So our son's down for a nap, and this voice says, "You have to eat right now." Something I can't remember exactly what it said, but it was like, "You break the fast." I think the voice was "break the fast," because I remember it was like very short sentence, very clear, "break the fast." And yeah, that was it. And then I was like, "Okay, I'm listening to this voice." So because it had been just around, just like I was within hours of being a 3-day fast, I was like, all right, it's not much for refeeding. I'm just going to serve myself what Duffy was eating, which I think it was mashed potatoes and vegetables and some it was something soft anyway. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to sit down and eat some of this. And I did. And right as I finished my meal, our son started screaming. He was waking up from his nap screaming. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's intense. And then I went and got him. And then that's when we realized, oh, wow, there's something wrong. Like he couldn't move his arm. And that's when we rushed him to the hospital. And then Duffy had asked me, like, why'd you break your fast? And I'm like, well, it's good that I did, because I needed the energy to be up half the night waiting in the hospital and the x-rays and the doctors and everything that had happened. I don't think I could have really been there and been present while fasting, or at least it wouldn't have been fun. Like it was fun anyway. It was much more manageable having had a meal going into that situation. And I didn't mention that in the previous conversation that you just listened to, because it just didn't come to mind to say that. But I didn't break the fast after we knew his arm was broken. I broke the fast right before we knew his arm was broken, because I got a clear message told me to do it. I don't know if you've ever had that. You've had a voice not your own, but a familiar, not a threatening voice, a voice not your own, say something, a very clear message to follow it. And I've heard some people say, yeah, I heard change lanes, and then I almost died in a car accident, or marry that woman. Sometimes we're guided divinely, right? And just got to listen to our intuition, which is our listening to our own self, but then sometimes we receive divine guidance. And at least that's my experience of life. So thank you. Thank you for being on this journey for me. And if you do decide to fast, come into the Facebook group. I'd love to hear your experience. The Facebook group, you could just search Learn True Health in Facebook, or you can go to learntruehealth.com/group, and that'll take you to the Facebook group. We have a wonderful listener community that's there to support you in your success. And I love answering your questions. And the group comes together, and we all help each other as we're growing on this journey. I'd mentioned near the beginning of this episode, the 3 episodes you can listen to for more information on fasting and the science behind it. Episode 230 with Dr. Alan Goldhammer, episode 269 with Troy Reicherter, and episode 390 with Robin Openshaw. So you can go ahead and go to your favorite app for listening to episodes, for listening to podcasts, or you can go to learntruehealth.com and search those. Thank you so much for being a listener. Thank you so much for sharing my podcast with those you care about. I don't know if you know my story. I was sick and suffering for so many years. I had multiple diseases. I was told by doctors I'd never get better. And I turned to holistic medicine. I was able to get my health back. I was able to reverse and end all those diseases, including I was told I'd never be able to have kids. And we have an amazing son. And it sparked a fire in me to want to help. I have a passion for helping people to no longer suffer. The suffering, it's so horrible that so many people out there have health problems, and there's answers for you, and the answers aren't readily available because the mainstream medical system is by profit, not by results. So if you're new to this podcast, if maybe someone shared it with you, come on this journey with me. I, through my interviews, show you how to no longer suffer, how to take control of your health and your life, and learn true health.